Welcome to the Sovereign Sanctuary Show! Hey, my name is Sanctuary.
And I'm Sade.
And we bridge the gap
between traditional Christianity and alternative spiritual philosophies so that you can customize your faith without feeling conflicted or confused.
And in honor of this being our first episode with each other, we are going to have a get to know each other video today. Sade and I have actually known each other for about 2 years now. We are both alumni from the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, so we are certified international health coaches. Woohoo!
Yeah.
But she lives in Texas, I live in Maryland, so we're miles and miles away, so there's always room to get to know each other more.
And also the spirit of coming together. We come from very different backgrounds. We come from almost entirely opposite of upbringings. And so we wanted to be able to emphasize that idea, like that paradox almost of how what would seem like conflicting ideas and concepts and belief systems can actually be married together, and that there is no shame in stepping outside of what someone would consider the traditional religion, and you can absolutely take different belief systems and put them together into your own specific, wonderful, unique, tailored faith.
Yes.
So I'm Sade. I am 31 years old and I'm a holistic health coach. And also I'm a true sidereal or true sky astrologer, which actually incorporates the 13 signs of the zodiac. I also started Grace Alchemy Wellness, which is an online business that helps spiritually awakening women who are feeling held back by chronic illness and limiting beliefs. And I help them to become their most epic selves and live a life that sets their soul ablaze. So that's what I'm doing here. And speaking to the, wait, no, we're skipping that part. It's your turn.
And my name is Sanctuary, and Sade had such a great way of speaking highly about herself because she's actually really awesome, and she's actually one of my favorite people. So I'm really excited that we get to do this together. But yeah, Sanctuary, I'm a worship/love singer. I'm also a holistic health coach, and I'm still in beta testing. However, I am in the process of launching my own signature program, and it's titled Holy Holistic Health Wellness. And what else? I think those are the main stuff. We could dig out some other things about me during the rest of the episode. But yeah.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be just asking each other pretty much the same framework of questions, just so that all of you beautiful listeners are able to get a better understanding about who we are and where we're coming from, so that as you hopefully subscribe and follow the unfolding of the Sovereign Sanctuary, then you're able to get a feel for like really the foundations of, you know, this is who these women are and this is their message and this is their mission, and hopefully you would really want to be a part of that and that you can join us on this lovely journey of unfolding the ins and outs, like the nuances of faith and of spirituality and of religion and of belief and a lot of other subjects that come with it. We're not going to just be talking just specific spirituality, but also different viewpoints that are going to help expose you to things that you might not necessarily have come across on your own, so that we can kind of lift the rug on things that have been traditionally swept under the rug in society and in like modern, especially like New Age movement or in like modern Christianity, those sorts of things. We're just going to try and bring forward as many perspectives that we're like, at least that we feel comfortable speaking on as possible, so that we can start to like create this tapestry of holistic spirituality and holistic wisdom in general. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me and for you also being here. What? We're doing this? Yes! Oh, I will say I'm 22 in case everyone was like, what? She didn't share her age. So I guess we can dive in.
So I can start off by saying that part of my journey with becoming a health coach was that in 2017, I started to experience rheumatoid arthritis symptoms, and they became so aggressive over a few years that eventually it actually made me become disabled. So I used to be a professional dancer, and in 2021, I think it was, I was the last time that I was able to stand up and walk. So there has been it's been quite a journey, but I was able to actually excavate the gift from that journey. And that's what's led me to deciding, okay, I'm going to help other people to not have to go through the journey that I went through, but also I'm going to help them on their journey, no matter what that looks like, whether it's as dramatic as mine was, or whether that's preventative, or also just being able to find the wisdom and the nuggets that are like in those experiences without having to go through like more of a really long-term rigorous, make sure that I can help people to reach those aha moments of self-discovery and healing with as little suffering as possible.
And you were truly gifted with it. Just like being part of the process of you fully launching it. Launching your program, there's just so much care and attentiveness that you have. And every single time that I interact with you, my soul is just refreshed and soothed. And I'm really, really pumped for other people to witness just your spirit, just your light in general.
My gosh, thank you so much for saying that. That's so blessed, and it just makes my heart feel so warm. And of course, it goes the other way too. Like, for everyone to know, like, when Sanchere and I first interacted with each other, it was on a group coaching call in school, and we only heard each other's voices, but like both just through hearing each other's voices, at this kindred connection of like, hey, like reached out to each other afterwards, and we're like, let's be friends. And I'm really curious about how you ended up finding yourself on the path of becoming a health coach.
Well, it actually started ever since I was young. I was not into taking the drugs that are medicine for any cold or anything of that nature. I just felt innately wrong about it. Thankfully, my mom raised us to like vegetables and fruits and all that jazz. I feel like she could be considered a crunchy mom in a way.
Probably.
But over time, especially in high school, when adolescents are kind of pressured to figure out what they want to do with their lives, I just realized that one of the big parts of who I am as a human being is holistic health. My mom even gave me a nickname called Dr. Google. So, because I'm always Googling, trying to figure out the natural way to alleviate any symptoms that may occur. And but as I was learning about what it actually means to be a health coach and what I have to do in order to do that, become one, when I was a senior in high school, senior in high school, I learned that in different states, it's different for everything. Regulations, I think at the time, Maryland, you have to be like 21 years old in order to be a health coach. And I was like, and I'm like 17, 18. This is what I want to do with my life right away, if possible. And I moved out 3 days after my high school graduation. And I was pretty burned out. I know. It was pretty intense. During that time, someone recognized me when I was a concierge at her residential property, and she offered me a job first on her project for a documentary, and then within the same week she was like, do you want to work at a holistic / dental facility with me as my administrative assistant? So I worked there for a bit, about 2 years, and then I got promoted to a patient care coordinator. Learned a lot, worked with dozens of doctors and dentists. Within that time, I circled back to my dream school, which was IIN, where we both went to. And that's like my origin story. So
well done for, I guess, sticking it out, because when you're at that age, 18, it's a very critical time. And so that was really great that you were able to like see that that was something you wanted to do, and like, you didn't just drop it. Like, once you were of age to be able to become licensed, you went for it. And so great job for doing that.
Thank you. Well, I guess I'm very, very curious about your upbringing, because you had already mentioned before that you come from kind of different worlds. And I've always been so intrigued by your world. You told me once that you went to a Waldorf school, and I just wanted to know, I wanted to pick your brain more about your childhood, because it's like so mystical to me.
Absolutely. So spirituality was one of the biggest foundations and cores of my upbringing. So just to take it all the way to the beginning, I was born in Germany, and so I already came into a world that was a lot different from what the standard American living style is. But my mom and I moved to Colorado when I was 4 years old, and I went to a Waldorf preschool. So Waldorf is a private school, at least in the US, it's private. It's a curriculum that's based off of something called Anthroposophy, which is a philosophy that started by Rudolf Steiner. And the philosophy is around the idea that like is an angelic being. It is a soul that has been brought into a physical body. And so it's very important that the child is not forced into the physical realm and forced into like, intellectual structure too soon, because otherwise it will completely drown and stifle their genius. It will completely suffocate their joy for and their curiosity for learning. So we see that so much in the public school system, right? Like these children are miserable. They're absolutely miserable. And that genius and that curiosity and that appetite has been snuffed out. That fire has been snuffed out. And so that's what is so amazing about being in a Waldorf school and then that Steiner curriculum is this. I was raised in an environment where everything was based on more of a somatic way of learning at a younger age, because from the Steiner perspective, it's not until you go through a certain cycle, there's like 7-year cycles, and it's not until you go through the initiation after you're 7 years old is one of the initiations, before you're ready to start to learn intellectual concepts with your mind. Before that, it's all play and movement. So before first grade, I was learning how to card wool and turn it into yarn. I was learning how to play with beeswax and bake bread and do watercolor painting. And it was like the entire, all the way from K through 12, like the greatest emphasis that comes with that kind of school, with a Waldorf school, is basically very similar to what you would think of as a home ec class and like Renaissance fair or smashed together. And so it was like very based on these foundations of being a human being. And then it also incorporated spirituality. It incorporated the idea of, I guess I would call it esoteric Christianity. So it's Christ consciousness. It's the divine Christ child within all of us as human beings. And it follows a lot of like Christian holidays and things like that. It celebrates the saints and all of that. So it has like a little bit of a flavor of Christianity, but it's still like very, very, very set aside and very different. But all of that was like my education system and what it was like for me to go to school, very supported in artistic endeavors and just like being given the space to like flourish and like tap into like my genius was, as well as having the room to, I guess, like it's like that idea around learning how to think for myself and problem solve versus being taught how to just regurgitate information, which is what the modern schooling systems are enforcing. But at the same time, the way that my home life was unfolding was that my mom was actually a kindergarten teacher at the Waldorf school, but also she was very much of a witchy wild woman. And she did like, her library was out of control. She had books from Buddhism and Taoism and Ayurvedic practices from ancient India. There was nothing that like she didn't, I guess, bring into the household, or at least study. And so as a young child, I was very curious, and I was very, because of my exposure to spirituality, I was very tuned in with the creator. And I did have my own kind of idea and image in my soul of like what God looked like. And I felt comfortable interacting with spirit or with angels. At least I was very much into like fairies and fae folk, which is actually something that is talked about and taught on constantly in the younger years of Waldorf education. So it was very interesting. And of course, my generation had Harry Potter, a huge influencing factor as well. And so my biggest goal or mission statement that I had as a child was, when I grow up, I want to get people to believe in magic. I also said, I was like, but people don't believe in magic. They only believe in science. So I have to become a scientist so that I can teach people how to believe in magic using science. And to this day, I feel as though I'm still in that space. Absolutely, becoming a health coach and by going through the lessons that I have gone through with chronic illness, I have done so much research and I'm a very like science-minded person, with like a huge pull towards spirituality as well. So marrying those two worlds, I guess, I'm on the path of living up to what my goal was as a kid.
Yeah, it's so beautiful to witness you actualize your soul mission in a way. Oh my goodness. And would you say that science and magic is alchemy?
I think you could say
Yeah.
that. And alchemy is a lot of things, and I feel as though we could probably have an entire episode specifically on alchemy, especially
Okay.
because I have chosen to call my business Grace Alchemy. But yeah,
Mhm.
alchemy is like this idea of transmutation, but it is also like temperance. It's bringing together two like things in a union, essentially.
Yeah.
I guess I think I am alchemizing the spiritual with the scientific in order to create something that's new, because alchemy takes like what's lead, right? It takes like the lower metals and it turns them into something that is precious and infinite.
Mhm.
So it's like the lead in this case would be like the weakness of being like spiritual and the weakness of being only scientific. And by unifying them, we create that golden gift. Like we create that entity of itself that when we wield it as a tool, we're able to tap into higher forces and honestly much more that idea of bringing us closer to God, whatever that
Yeah.
shape may take for each individual. Great question.
Yeah, of course. It sounds like, and you went to the Waldorf school pre-K or kindergarten through 12. That was your entire education?
Yes, it was for the most part the couple years where I went to a public school, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. And during that time, also, there was a 6-month period where we went on a road trip and we were living out of a van. So I was homeschooled, but it was really like I was schooling myself. Like my mom and my stepdad at the time just gave me some math workbooks and took me to the library and they're like, pick a book and read it. It was like it's fun because it was very like I was in charge of teaching myself.
Mhm.
And I happened to choose, I think it was Carl Sagan, some like universe, cosmos, outer space kind of book. So that was cool.
Wow.
Yeah, very interesting. But otherwise, when we came back from our living in van excursion, then I went back to a public school for another 2 years and then went back to Waldorf. So I have been able to say honestly that I have had all of the different flavors. And I know that the Waldorf education was by far the defining space that like really shaped me into who I am today. But I'm very curious to hear about your upbringing and your relationship to spirituality and to God and how your upbringing shaped that.
Well, yours is really beautiful. I've always wanted to live in a van, so I hope you had a good time.
There's a lot of cereal.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh gosh. Well, as far as my upbringing, so we're talking about elementary school for me. I was actually born in Baltimore, Maryland, and I went to public school for all of my life. I wanted to be homeschooled, I think because I'm the first child, which to all of our viewers or listeners, I'm the eldest of 7 kids.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of going on, a lot of family, a lot of love in the air. But I think because I was the oldest and I was like, I want to be homeschooled and I would have transferred to this other public school and things of that nature. It didn't really occur. But then once the other kids grew up, they were able to do the things I wanted to do. So it's like, okay, what eldest? It's just my rite of passage or something like that. But yeah, elementary school, I was pretty nerdy right off the bat. So I would do math problems inside of my notebook during the spare time where I finished something early and things of that nature. And the kids did not really like me. I actually was kind of bullied throughout my elementary school years. And 5th grade was super duper hard to the point that my best friend actually did become my 5th grade teacher. And instead of being in the cafeteria with other kids, I would eat my lunch with my teacher.
I did the same thing in 6th grade at
Really?
public school. I was bullied and I would have to be escorted from the classroom to the cafeteria and then I would sit with all the teachers.
Oh my gosh. It's just because we're so special, Sade. Did they tell you why they were bullying you?
Because I was just different. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was all Hispanic and Black population, and it was in what one would consider the ghetto. And so I showed up as like the nerd, and I was called teacher's pet, and I was like
Yeah.
blue shoes. And I, because of my upbringing and being raised by a Caucasian woman,
Mm-hmm.
if I had dark skin, I acted very white. And that was like awkward. Like I didn't belong in the space because
Yeah.
of how like I acted. So that was very interesting.
Oh my gosh. This is probably why our kindred spirits were like, okay, we need to talk to each other. Because that's literally basically what happened to me. I never got escorted. That kind of sounds cool, though. That sounds like you're a celebrity. But yeah, they also called me a goody two shoes. They also said that I was acting too white. And
Mm-hmm.
I get it. Like, we were in Baltimore, and not gonna lie, it was kind of ghetto. I mean, I went to the IB school, which I believe stands for International Bachelorette School, but still, they were so mean. And so, goody two shoes, they said I was happy all the time. And then they said I was too smart. I know. So it's just like, yeah.
How your upbringing, like with like your spirituality and like your spiritual journey, like where you are now with having those like 4 years be the way that they were.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why I had a difficult time in school was because I had such a strong relationship with God since I was young. My mom's mom, so my grandma, she's a pianist in the church. I didn't see her do her church thing growing up because they actually moved from California to Maryland, but that was something that was ingrained in me. I remember growing up, every Sunday I would go to church and put on my church clothes. We would listen to Kirk Franklin and Mary in the car. And there was a time where it was also part of a discipleship, and I had my own personal Bibles. My little sister and I would play this game about God and Jesus, but this was before we like knew what was happening. But we were like, no, God's with me. And no, Jesus is with me. Like, we were dating God and Jesus when we were younger. But then we figured out, like, the actual boundaries and relationship with God. And I was like, oh.
Love it. I love it.
Actually, yeah. I realized that doing a Bible session, that's actually tomorrow. And we'll talk about how, like, we are the brides of God. So I think that's really cool how, like, you have different multi-layered levels with God.
Yes.
But all I have to say is I don't remember any time where I didn't have God in my life, which is like really cool to think about. There was a time when I actually moved schools 3 times. So it was elementary school in Baltimore. Then after 5th grade, it was just like, okay, we need to get out of there. So then I moved to Catonsville, Maryland, which is a small city next to Ellicott City. And it was predominantly white. So I went from like a predominantly Black school where everyone was like Christian and only the teachers were Caucasian. And then 6th grade was mostly people that are Caucasian and people that are of other ethnicities. There were only like 10 people in my class. I counted at lunchtime before several times and I was like, wow. And then afterwards, we moved to Silver Spring, Maryland, and that was a more diverse area. And when I moved, I didn't know that like other were prominent. So I was just like, what? Like, there are other people other than Christian? I felt so ignorant. I was like, no way. But it was really neat. During the move, so 7th grade in Silver Spring and up, I came across a lot of people that were atheists for the first time. So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to try to be atheist. And I was atheist, quote unquote, for 3 days. But during those 3 days, I was talking to God. So I was like, wait a minute. If I'm talking to God, then that means I believe in God. Therefore, I'm not atheist. Therefore, yeah.
You're just a poser.
I just wanted to fit in, I guess, and experiment. But no, I
get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. So that's my childhood.
You can't get away from God. You really can't get away from God. And I appreciate that, like, both of our, it's fun. I actually was looking up the definition of agnostic yesterday, just to like, because I was like, I don't even know if I understand what an agnostic believes, but it's like this idea that like yes, there be like a divine creator or something, but like it cannot be defined or cannot be like described or something.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, anyone watching this, please, like, you can leave the comments or whatever if you're like, you did not get that right, like, or I'm an agnostic or whatever. I'd love to learn more about that, because it's such an interesting like space between being like, of a certain faith and then also being atheist. But the reason I was bringing that up is like, for myself, I'm like, okay, what definition of agnostic? I'm like, yeah, you can creator. Like there are words to describe the creator, but that doesn't mean that we don't try. And so maybe that's what like separates us, like that we do believe like so full in the creator and in spirit and God, that it's just like an interesting little line. I'm like, okay, well, what separates us? I'm just like, yes, there's a creator, but we can't describe him or her or it or whatever. I feel like, yeah, I can't describe him or it or she or whatever, but also I have a relationship with
Mm-hmm.
this being. If I can have a relationship and an interaction with the creator, does that mean that it can be described or that it can be, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and here is where I'm very excited to continue teaching myself and learning more about like different faiths, different stuff. I think it's like the Muslim teaching that is like, to try and depict God. Do I
Mm-hmm.
get correct? Do you know?
I'm not entirely sure if like the Muslim and all that
Mm-hmm.
jazz, but that does sound really familiar to me. And
Yeah.
I think that's so beautiful because, yeah, we can't
Mm-hmm.
call God. It
Yeah.
literally says it in biblical texts and
Mm-hmm.
everything else that God is just too cool to fathom completely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Too awesome.
Too awesome.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
would love to transition into the next question. I am curious about like, where you are now and like where you have come from. Like, what kind of life do you want for yourself? Like, what do you envision for yourself?
Every day I feel like that's pending. But the staples that have always reoccurred within my imagination is
Mm-hmm.
essentially having a homestead. I would love
Mm-hmm.
to grow and make everything from home. Even though I don't have kids, I identify as a potential crunchy mom.
Yes.
I definitely would love to be more with my holistic health, whether that is to have like a program like annual or a full time singer. Singing has
Mm-hmm.
been another thing that has been super intertwined with me. I think it's important to say that Sanchere actually means song of love and God's child. So that's been a reoccurring theme in my life and it's very prominent. And especially with
Beautiful.
singing, thank you. Especially with singing. I'm technically someone said I can be considered a professional singer because I am paid for my services. But I don't even like to call it services. Worship, I guess. I don't know. It's still like a gray area I'm trying to navigate because it's pretty fresh. But yeah, I don't think anything completely published that people can stream. I'm only a live performer as of now. And I would definitely love to still keep the indie independent artist label because especially with everything with the music industry right now, I just don't want to dive into that world.
That's
But
also an episode for later.
definitely. But I think it boils down to being a singer, being a holistic health coach, whether it's having sessions with people or just putting information out there, as like and having a homestead, cottage core vibes.
Yes, love it.
Thank
Love it.
you. What about you?
So I am very ambitious. Another thing that I said when I was a little girl was that when I grow up, I'm going to be famous and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
be a millionaire.
Yes, as you should.
And it's very interesting because like coming into like an adult, you come to a space where it seems as though ambition and pride and that kind of drive, like even just like talking about money, it feels a little bit stigmatized. Like it feels a
Yeah.
little bit uncomfortable. Like you can be judged for saying something like that. And so it became part of like the shame myself too, that I was like looking at of like I was myself for like wanting to like influence and wanting to be like wanting to be like super affluent, and wealthy. And so I had to do a lot of work with myself around that. And I was like, well, what is the issue with this? Like, what's wrong with this? Because for me, if I have tons and tons of money, that will be one of the greatest things ever, because I do believe that I am here to be of service.
Mm-hmm.
In this stage, you can't do anything. You can't create change if you don't have money and you don't have like connections and you don't have influence and power and like some position somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that is like what I'm in myself in my future. I like to say I'm building a wilderness empire. Like, you know, Gwyneth Paltrow Goop movement, or they don't shame Oprah. Like I want to like hoping for my to be able to create something of that caliber, but without, this could be a little bit controversial, but like without selling out, like, you know, 100% about humanity and being an instrument of God, like bringing that spiritual into everything that I do and making sure that everything I do is like heart centered and soul led.
Mm-hmm.
So from like a, you know, more 3D perspective, I see myself as having a few different like landing spaces, a few different countries, like
Yeah.
that would be able to travel and host in-person retreats, like healing retreats. But my foundation would be having some land, having essentially like a homestead and like regenerative. Not necessarily want to like have a ranch, but we'll see. I'm imagining a very wholesome kind of bridging the between like homestead, but all like urban, like
Mm-hmm.
very still to a modern urban lifestyle. But I want a health center, like a holistic center. That's like where the comes, whether that's for education or, you know, shops and live events like music and dancing and just a place for people to come together and to be in community and to be a family and to learn what they need in order to thrive, basically, and in all senses of the word, and taking those teachings, that community, and being able to ripple it out to the rest of humanity, as well as increasing our relationship with earth and the mother earth, like having more symbiotic relationship with ourselves and with the earth, because I do believe that like the our own bodies is reflected in the earth,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that is a bigger picture of like what is our relationship with God, like where are we right now with our relationship with God. This is, if you look around us and you look at the state of your health, that will tell you. So yeah, so community thing and having a few spaces around, not necessarily around the world, but especially like Europe kind of base that I'm most attracted to. I do foresee myself hopefully living in like Ireland, or that has lots of rolling green hills and fog and
Oh.
sheep. And of course, the other vision that I call is that of like as of time right now that I'm not able to walk or do whatever capable bodied people are able to do, but I also like I pray, you know, every day, like this is not a permanent state for me to be
Mm-hmm.
in, and that this is a learning experience, and it's an end that I'm going to be able to, whether it's through surgery or just like pure miracle self-healing, my knees will get replaced, I will be able to walk again, I will be able to bear children and have a family and have a legacy that continues on.
Oh. Yeah, and I knew you would be a great mom. You give
Thank you.
off so many mom vibes. You're welcome.
I'm very maternal and I'm very strict. No nonsense. Crunchy mom for sure.
My goodness. Well, yeah, your life sounds like a dream. We're gonna do it. Should we promise or
Really?
something?
Yeah, well, I mean, we can promise with God, right? It's like believe that, you know, what we're seeking is also seeking us, and that
Mm-hmm.
like that like heartfelt desire something wouldn't be there if it wasn't something that we were meant to pursue.
Mm-hmm.
There's such a beautiful, you know, surrendering to God's will, but also having the discipline to go at creating something that creator wants you to
Yeah.
bring to fruition. And I'd love to speak to that more also in another episode about like that like, and it comes to like the masculine and the feminine, right? Of like surrender and like, you know, finding more of a balance of bringing the two worlds together of discipline, surrender. And so,
Exactly. As you were starting to speak, I was like, yeah, surrender's like a big bit, and I'm so happy that we're one accord. You said it so elegantly. Yay.
thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I
Welcome.
feel like we're coming up to a super awesome little wrap up
Yeah.
space. Do you have anything, any like closing statements that you would like to share with anyone who's listening?
I'm just really excited to start this journey with you, and I already feel really good about it. I pray we attract people that are going to be so nice to each other so that we can have those open conversations and it's not just us talking and then having the conversations end here. I definitely want to learn from other people as well, and it would be really exciting to see if like someone wants to join us on these conversations, and like a doctor about different foods that we should stay away from, or a pastor about how they also embed esoteric Christianity within their teachings. And I love that we're both super ambitious people, so I'm just like really excited this could just like be a part of our life. So first episode, yay!
Yeah, much to everyone who is listening. And there are show notes and all of that down below. And yeah, if you in this, please like and subscribe and follow wherever it is that you're listening, whether it's a podcast platform or if you're on YouTube and you're seeing this with our faces. And yeah, thank you again so much. Stay tuned for more. We are just barely scratching the surface. There's going to be a lot of super deep diving, probably a lot of controversy and a lot of super awesome, heartfelt, just maybe even a little preaching, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, we appreciate so much for being here. Thank you.
Yay! Yay, the Sovereign Sanctuary Show. Bye.
Yay.